We haven't done this before, have we?
Not mid-season. We did a wins draft a couple of years ago before the season as a way to replace the over-under pod. And so instead we did a draft with me, you, Jeremy, and Chris, where we each took, I believe, 30 divided by 4 is 7. So we each took 7 teams, and then there was 2 non-taken teams. And they both ended up with the worst 2 records in the NBA. And we then calculated wins throughout the year. So what we're going to do is, with the remaining schedule, pick 15 teams each. And we're going to pick the teams we think will win the most amount of games. We'll try to do a wins draft between the 2 of us. Now, one difficult part is some teams have 25 games left. Some teams have 22 games left. Like the Knicks have 22 games left. The Sixers have 25 games left. So obviously there's the calculation that one team has more opportunities to win games. There's also which teams are going to tank, which teams are going to rest guys, which teams are going to have stuff wrapped up, which teams are going to have stuff to play for, which I think added a new wrinkle then into my research of looking at schedules that made this kind of fun. So I'm curious how this goes.
As am I. I just want to point out that the first half, like what we've seen so far is, if history is any indication, certainly not necessarily a predictor of what could maybe happen in the second half. For example, last season, the team that finished the first half of the season with the second most wins, the Golden State Warriors, after the All-Star break, they were tied for the 18th most wins behind your New York Knicks. The Warriors went 11-12 after the All-Star break, after starting the season 42-17. And then it could go the other way as well, where you have a team like the Raptors that before the All-Star break last year was 32-25. They finished 16-9. We can look at the Atlanta Hawks even. Speaking of the devil, Atlanta Hawks were 28-30 before the All-Star break last season. After the All-Star break, they went 15-9. So you get a fair bit of variance here. I don't know that there's any rhyme or reason to this other than maybe look at who made a trades, look who's coming together, look whose net rating is better than their wins on the season so far. And you brought it up, look at who's tanking. So I guess last thing I'll mention, going back to last year, the Portland Trailblazers before the All-Star break last year were a bad, but they could hold their heads high, 25-34. After the All-Star break, they were 2-21. So there you go.
I think the Warriors are a fascinating case to bring up because just like last year, Steph Curry was injured, and that's why they were actually 6-12 during a stretch. And then he came back and they won their final 5 games. And I wonder if we're headed toward something similar this year, where they are kind of riding the wave while he's still gone, and then maybe they get hot right before the playoffs, which propels them to a level you think they can get to, and where I've been avoiding saying I think they can still get to. But we'll see. This is I think this is a good creative way to predict the second half, or to look ahead to the second half of the season. Or I guess it's not even the second half.
It's really actually the final quarter is the closest. It's we're past the 2/3 mark. 2/3 mark was for some, as you said, for some teams, the 2/3 mark was 2-3 games ago. For the Knicks, it was 5 games ago. So, anyway, enough with semantics. Who's getting the first pick here?
It's a great question. I gotta go get the deck of cards, but they're on the floor. So hold on a second.
Okay. I mean, you could just think of a number between.
No.
Okay.
We have a process. What is a world without rules, John Macri? Okay.
Okay.
This is not 1984. All right, you ready?
I'm as ready as I will ever be.
Your card, John Macri, is, you could read it out loud, the Joker. All right, that makes sense. All right, let's try this again. Your card.
That was a dig.
Is
the King. There it is.
King
That's
of clubs.
appropriate.
Yeah, but it's not as good as the Jack. Oh well, you're
Close. You should get like a 3.
Yeah, and we're going back and forth. Pick them, so it's not going to be
fine.
Snake.
That makes life easier.
Yes, in a 2-person draft, you don't do Snake. So you get to go first.
Yeah, I am gonna go ahead and try to not overthink this one, and I'm going to take the team with the best net rating of the first half of the season and with the most wins of the first half of the season, and I'll go with the Boston Celtics.
The Boston Celtics. Okay.
I think like they're among most NBA teams, I think they are on the Thibodeau side of the scale in terms of rest and how often they rest guys, which is to say they don't really do it. That said, I could see them maybe being a little bit more selective with their rest down the stretch of the season. Their coach just got their interim coach just got named regular coach. I don't know if that plays into it at all. But I feel like, will they have the most wins from here on in? Probably not. But I feel like they're the safest bet.
Funny you say that, because they have 23 games remaining. They have the 10th most difficult schedule.
Yeah.
And I will say the rest part is not a factor for me, because I think they're going to have to fight for the 1 seed. And I do think what they showed in the playoffs last year, even though they ended up winning 3 road games against Miami, is that the home court's going to matter in this playoffs, especially if they want to go up against Boston. So I think they'll play out the string. If anything, it's like 1 or 2 games at the end. They might rest if they have something clinched. But
I was a little with the they're gonna have to fight all the way to get the 1 seed. I wonder. Well, I wonder if there isn't maybe a little bit of regression coming from 1 or more of the teams that are chasing them. That's all I'll say.
Well, speaking of the teams chasing them, no, actually, I'm going to go to the West, and might surprise you a little bit. And I'm fully playing the numbers here. They have the 25th most difficult schedule, which then translates into the 6th most easiest schedule remaining. And they have 25 games left, which is the most out of any of the teams on this list. So I'm going with the Memphis Grizzlies with my first pick. They still have 3 games against the Rockets, a game against the Spurs, the Trailblazers. They also play the Magic, although the Magic have been more feisty, but that game is in Memphis. There's some easy wins and potentially a path to 55 wins again for the Grizzlies. So I'm going to take them first.